Gaitonde remarked, "My entire outlook changed when I came to know that the Chinese have no epics to boast of. For the simple reason that an epic covers a long period of time, and it is basically wrong to say, for instance, that any age can be heroic. Any abstract feeling, love, courage, etc., can be valid only for a certain moment." Very important. Again he quotes, "I myself did not realize when I grew out of Paul Klee and entered the world of Zen. But I can definitely say that when I was introduced to Zen, there was no Klee in me. There was no conflict in this transition. I suddenly saw no need to paint from any kind of concept at all. There came an amazing sense of liberation, and that is where my painting began to flow from." This is not Gaitonde's painting. So with Zen, there is no distinction between representation and abstraction, just as there is no clear distinction between painting and calligraphy. The left work is the Zen master Torei Enji has brushed a circle or enso, the character for heart, mind, and standing in for the universe. Inside the circle, Toreji has calligraphed Buddha's declaration, "In heaven and on earth, I alone am the honored one." The right one, with as much authority, Ungo Kyo, has brushed a single aichi signifying all things return to the one. Please note in which years these paintings were executed. And let's look at this work. This is again the largest canvas that Gaitonde has painted. And he quotes, "There is no place for thought in the process of painting. Your entire body and mind reach a state of equilibrium. Zen means that the painter, the paint, and the canvas meet in a union in one brief moment." Now we'll just look at some works. This painting is the painting number 1, and a very important painting. It was exhibited in the Contemporary Indian Painting, sponsored by the Indian Council of Cultural Relations, curated by Richard Bartholomew. There has been much speculation about the influence of color-field painting on Gaitonde's work. Krishan Khanna is clear that Gaitonde was interested in this style of painting even before he left for New York.
What do you do to the mic?
I don't know, it just goes off. I don't do anything. I'm not touching it.
You have to, you should continue to lure it towards you.
Okay, fine. So this painting was done in 1962 and he went to New York in 1964. So we can clearly see that he was mastering the art of abstraction and space 2 years before. Again, to quote Richard Bartholomew, Gaitonde's most impressive quality was the quiet tonal harmony of his semi-abstracts. These arrangements possessed what might be called animation, a kinetic power that imparted movement to the delicately balanced configurations. That's not a Gaitonde work, but that's a pattern image in nature. That's a vortex of cloud, vortex of cloud. There's a shift again. Look at these paintings, these photographs very carefully. These are not paintings, they're actually photographs taken it's a study of semantics. It's a study of visible sound and vibration. So I'm not sure if you're familiar, but there are experiments done by German physicist by Dr. Hans Jenny, who experimented on the effects that sound vibration had on matter, liquid, water, iron, lead. So these are some of the images. Now I'm not going to go into detail of which image is what, but you can just see the images. So these are photographs. And now look at this. That's a guy only paperwork. Again, quoting Richard Bartholomew. Bartholomew dwelt on the transition that several artists had made from representational work to what he termed intuitions of nature. In subscribing to the view that abstraction for them did not mean turning away from nature, rather implied a more intense and extremely personal investigation into its constituent elements. While growing as artists, he felt they were no longer content in delineating what could be seen and sensed. They were concerned with evoking what was deeply felt, what lay buried in memory and in the body of feeling which reflected their total experience. A few works in this period. They were mainly drawing ink on papers. There is a sense of symmetry, if you can see, that's coming in this series of works. Look at the brush strokes. Can I read something, or you guys just want to watch?
When that sound study is done, that in the beginning you showed?
That is done many years ago, not at the same time of Gaitonde. This is done in 1756. These, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is done, these experiments are done by, I'll tell you, Lichtenberg.
Very recent. This is very recent work.
Lichtenberg was in 1777. 1777.
So there was access of these images for
Maybe,
that, isn't it?
no, that's not the relation I'm making. I'm just correlating experiments made by a physicist, scientist, a botanist, and an artist who's exploring the same thing in India through maybe intuition, through a sense of, yeah.
These are photographs?
These are photographs. So can I just tell you what this process is? Should I read it out? Okay.
Would there be photographs that time?
No, they're not photographs. I'll just tell you what they are. There's xerographies. Yeah, so this was invented by the scientist.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was just listening to you speak.
Yeah.
And the terms you've been using to describe Gaitonde's work and also his artistic background, you've been using words like transition, synergy, energy, tone, harmony, intuitions of nature, vortex, pattern, visible sound and vibrations. You know, things like lying buried in layers and then revealing. Somehow it sounds to me as if he had inner rhythms that he was trying to tap into, which also is there in the scientific project that you just showing me, which is basically sound with the effect of, you know.
Yeah.
Incidentally, we have a musicologist with us, Deepak sir is here. I just wanted to know how do you see his work in terms of, you know, you're looking at an artist who's also tapped into music, and I know a little bit more. I believe Jaisal, he's also very influenced by music of Pandit Kumar Gandharv also. And does that come through in his work, or is it just me reading this?
I think it does, and as you'll see in my presentation later, so these are the correlations, I mean, I'm observing and I'm making. I mean, he's not seen these images, okay? So, I'm just tracing that, okay, like something that happens centuries ago and how intuitively the artist in another geography, in another land is tapping into the same form. And that is evolution, right? I mean, that is in a way a process of synchronization. Because what is a scientist? What is a physicist? He is exploring the same energy as an artist is exploring it through color. Like what was Turner doing? You know, for example, or what was Van Gogh doing? You know, he was trying to paint energy. At that time, nobody really understood that. You know, but today we are looking at it in that form. You know, so this is it's a little different. I'm not going the critical history route. This is a bit different route that I'm taking on a visual level. That what were the explorations? So what these images are, this is to trace the negative and positive shapes of electric fluids. So this is not just water or some, you know, this is some high. So he built a large electrophorus to generate high voltage static electricity through induction. After discharging a high voltage point on the surface of an insulator, he recorded the resulting radial patterns by sprinkling various powdered materials onto the surface. By then pressing blank sheets of paper onto these patterns, Lichtenberg was able to transfer and record these images, thereby discovering the basic principle of modern xerography. So this was done many like centuries ago. Do you have me? She asked you a question.
For a moment I would say, I only quote my Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab. He said, राग ऐसा बजना चाहिए कि आपको आपके सामने खड़ा हुआ देखे. दूसरी बात उन्होंने यह कही थी कि संगीतकार के कानों में आंख होती है. The optical function and the oral functions are very intimately connected. So anything that connects the two senses in art is making sense even in terms of modern neurosciences. That's what I'd say for now, that the connection is not far-fetched even in terms of science, nor is it far-fetched in terms of the personal experience of great artists.
Shall I proceed?
Please.
I'm just going to read something. Again, this is, I did hear it from the writer's son. The writer's son did hear it from the rhapsodist's grandson. The rhapsodist's grandson did hear it from Clearview. Clearview did hear it from the Harken. The Harken did hear it from Tone. Tone did hear it from sound. Sound did hear it from secret. Secret did hear it from the void. Void did hear it from Tao. He's even called these paintings, usually if you see all his titles are untitled, but he's specifically called these.
What is it that you read right now?
Okay. I didn't want to say it because I didn't. It's by Duchamp Dissy, the true book from the southerly blossoms rim.
Who is the person?
Duchamp, D-S-H-U-A-N-G, D-S-I. Taoist, of course. Kandinsky also titled his works like this, right? Composition. and John Cage, the composer, who was also influenced by Zen philosophy. I'm going to come to that now. This is Ying Yu Qian, done in 1210 and 1280. Haze dispersing from around a mountain village, ink on paper. Abstract expressionism 700 years before the New York School of 1940s and 60s. One of the earliest extant Chinese contributions in the long history of world abstraction, but not the earliest, which is attributed to the artist-poet Wang Wei, which is 699 to 759, according to written accounts, but has no known works to survive and to see. Deepened throughout his life, as he discovered writers such as D.T. Suzuki, very important, who was also the major exponent of Zen in the 1950s and 60s in the West. He was the one who introduced the idea of Zen to the West, where John Cage, Merce Cunningham, Alan Kaprow, Namjoon Paik, Shigeko Kuboto, Yoko Ono, and various Fluxus artists were applying Zen principles to their music, choreography, performances, and visual art. It can be said that Gaitonde's practice intersected with Cage's in its explorations of silence and nothingness. Despite that the two men approached Zen from very different and distinct points of departure. You know, John Cage was very influenced by Indian philosophy. He's come to India so many times. And Gaitonde was there. They have never met. I mean, the two artists have never met. You can say that they were like contemporaries. Ruminating on Gaitonde's work at a lecture, the poet and writer Ashok Vajpayee noted that, quote, Gaitonde was a Nirgun painter and he wanted to say nothing. Cage, on the other hand, had once famously remarked, I have nothing to say and I'm saying it, and that is poetry. So I don't know if you've been observing the sizes he's doing. So his paperworks were small, but his canvases were all large, 40 by 50. He never did small canvases. You see that fan-like form again in the center?
Where is this?
Where is this means?
Where?
I don't know that right now.
No.
It's here in India. The painting, right? Yeah, okay. Now I'm going to read again. Shugetsu Tokan, Haboku, Flung Ink Landscape, circa 1510, Cleveland Museum of Art. I've intentionally tried to research older works and not the more recent ones, because I wanted to trace this timeline. So among the alluring figures of abstraction is a variety of delights afforded by the shifting scale of detail, or what we've come to call the artwork's fractal relationship to the viewer. Texture, layering of paint, translucence, granularity. Here we have Gaitonde. It's a beautiful painting, so I'm going to give you all a minute. Can you see the way he's used the space? I mean, total emptiness, which will completely change later. This is a TIFR. This painting is at Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. Now again, a bit of a shift, I'm sorry. So all those paintings earlier were done abroad when he was in the US, okay? This is 1967, when he comes back. So it was perhaps inevitable that Gaitonde would return home from America via Japan in the year 1966. Given his fascination for Zen Buddhism, he journeyed to Kyoto, the country's cultural hub. One of the places he had visited, he paid a visit to was Ryoanji, a Zen temple located in northwest Kyoto. In the temple's rock garden, considered one of the finest in Japan, 15 stones of varying sizes are composed in 5 groups, surrounded by a bed of white gravel. This abstract composition is meant to induce a mood of meditation, and visitors often spend hours in tranquil contemplation. The Zen aesthetics of the place evidently made a deep impression on the visiting artist, and it is tempting to surmise that the rocky outcrops in a sea of paint, often seen in Gaitonde's canvases, could be resonances from his visit to the minimalist Zen garden of Ryoanji. Visual impressions. Now who's this? Tell me. This is not Gaitonde. Okay? But it feels like Gaitonde, right? This is John Cage. So John Cage was also inspired by Zen. He created a series of prints and drawings inspired by the Ryoanjo garden in Kyoto. These are like, he used chance operations to create his works. These are metal dry point tools and later in pencil. In homage to the restricted space of Japanese garden and once more demonstrating his life of delineation, Cage did not allow any of the stones to cross the edge of the plate, so that the resulting prints looked chaotic and serene at the same time. The artist's line orbiting unpredictably within the rules. The drawings are more tentative and fragile. The penciled ghosts of stones sometimes barely insisting on the paper. A strange coincidence, right? 2 artists, inspired by similar philosophy, similar visuals. That's Gaitonde. In several of Gaitonde's works executed in this period, the pictorial plane appears to be divided into flat swathes of color, but there are also abstract forms breaking the flatness of the surface. The slow build-up of layers, the attention to tone and texture, the harmonious play of colors, all convey a meditative mood by which color is made a vehicle to the spiritual. And these works draw the viewers to explore the depths both within the painting and within themselves. Now again we're going to be shifting a little. That's Gaitonde and that's Nasreen. Art writer Priya Karunakar also dwells on what unites both the artists, differentiating them from the mainstream of Indian abstraction at the time. just as much as she explores their differences. According to Karunakar, what separates the work by the two painters from other non-representational art of the time is a certain quality of objectivity, a sense of restraint, and a degree of technical finish. Karunakar believes that while most Indian abstractionists were busy deconstructing objects into planes, Nasreen had adopted a vocabulary of linear geometry, while Gaitonde had opted for a more open structure in his work. Nasreen moves into fuller control of what she is doing, and Guy's greatest strength and weakness lies in the nature of his intuitive relationship with controlled accident. The term intuition is often used to describe his practice. According to Rubina, for Gaitonde, color was the prime force in arriving at the visual miracle. For Nasreen, the graphic line was indispensable to her vision. It's very interesting. I'm going to read something here. Nasreen herself, Nasreen herself spoke about emptying the center. She wrote in her diary, "The empty mind receives. Drain it, squeeze the dirt hard so that it receives the sun with a flash." This resonates with the Sufi thought that one must learn to empty the center and drain the ego to become receptacle of pure light and knowledge. She writes, "Solitude plus strength without compromise, freedom. Solitude plus strength without compromise equals freedom." Now what is freedom according to Gaitonde? I'm just going to read that. How can there be a free will when you are free? There is no will. And he was asked this question, what is free will? So his answer was, how can there be a free will when you are free and there is no will? Freedom for Gaitonde in his work also meant not being slave to isms and influences, and instead getting in touch with his true inner self. As he put it, that is why, rather than getting trapped into Indian miniatures, Paul Klee and Zen, I transcended them. I was flowing freely in this abstraction. There is where I experienced full freedom. So now again there's a shift, okay? Biomorphic formations. Are you guys tired? Okay.
A little tiresomeness will do.
Okay.
Art criticism is a serious business.
There's a quote by Sharon Lowen, who was Gaitonde's friend at that time. She was struck by the fluidity and element of transition in his works. In her words, Guy's art is, without any question, abstraction that is organic. There is nothing cold about it in its abstraction. You are not looking at lines. There are no lines. It's only transition. Everything is micro-changing into what it is supposed to be and where it is coming from. Everything is causing the next thing, but there is no point where it permanently is. I think in Dye's paintings, you have that sense. You have floating images that change. Now the image on the left, okay, is again an experiment done on sand. with a certain vibration, and it's created these shapes. I mean, there's an entire book actually. Okay. Now, what is biomorphic? Can somebody tell me what these are? Like, Akhilesh? Huh?
Right one is diagonal
Acha, you made out, okay.
and these two.
Okay. So, artistic, what is biomorphic? Artistic expressions identified with a nature-centric or biologically shaped approach to artistic styles are usually described as biomorphic. Biomorphic forms relate to natural processes. They allow the artist to explore the natural world without representing it directly. Artworks produced in this style are characteristic by organic forms, curvilinear shapes, and abstracted images reminiscent of undersea and microscopic life forms. Generally, biological thought in the 19th century was shaped by metaphysics and by methods of contemplation and intuition. In contrast to physics and chemistry, the power of visualization played a particularly important role in the life sciences because biologists usually began with the observation of natural phenomena rather than experimentation, and used the process of visualization to arrive at interpretations and understanding of these phenomena. Now, Johann Wolfgang Goethe and Ernst Haeckel were the earliest biologists or botanists who explored these organic formations in nature. Now, the ones on the left, they are by this botanist and educationist, Kintaro Okamura. He was a Japanese, and these were done in 1889. So I've purposely kept it all in black and white just to see the formal relationships of form, not the color, just see the form, the formations. Dwelling on this quality in Gaitonde's works, you'll see there's a lot of light that starts coming in his works. The color is always translucent, in historic contrast to the viscous impastos of his years in Bombay. It is not just an underwater ambience, but one of beams of light penetrating the water. So from complete emptiness, you're seeing all these forms now coming up on the canvases. This is one of my favorite works. It actually feels like there's a being, in the middle. And I'm going to quote, Vasily Kandinsky described, "The true work of art is arising from out of the artist, and once released from him and assuming its own independent life, taking on a personality and becoming a self-sufficient, spiritually breathing subject that also leads a real material life. It is a being." When the art becomes its own personality. Or organic formations. The image on the right, the black and white image, is an experiment. Like air and liquid is sandwiched between a sheet of glass and when excited by vibration. And so these are the shapes that came. I'm going to read something Richard Barthmiller has written. "The entire canvas is a fabric of shifting, floating filaments, fern-like textures between which there are cut-out views of firmer and more solid forms, perspectives and prospects, as it were. It is difficult, almost impossible, to see the landscape in these works, but that they reflect memories and depict different modes is clear. The lyric, the nostalgic, the exuberant and the resonant. I've intentionally just taken one critique because even his criticism has been evolving with his practice. Okay. Music played a vital role in Gaitonde's life, and visitors often recall him listening to Beethoven on his turntable. His paintings too resonate with a certain deep and almost primeval rhythm, only instead of musical notes. Cadences of color created the compositions. In a lecture in the Rotary Club, Krishan Khanna likened Gaitonde's paintings to the development of a raga. Like any classical Indian musician, Gaitonde was interested in the alap, which according to Khanna meant him taking a very limited field of color, exercising that and getting variations in terms of that color. Jaya Appaswamy, a renowned art critic, has also commented on the artist's restricted palette. She characterized his paintings as juxtapositions of reticence and expansiveness. The gentle gradations of color form a liquid matrix in which small and more solid outcrops of form appear to float. The style itself is reticent, saying or suggesting only the least that needs to be stated. The colors too are limited and quiet, and often consist of hues of the same color. The whole painting has a certain expansiveness because the composition is open and can be thought of as a part of a large reality. So that's 87. He met with an accident in 85, after which he didn't paint for many years, but he did a series of drawings which I'm going to come to. This is 95. That's 96. The unscripted image. In the 80s, mid-80s, he started doing a lot of paper works, like ink on papers. Again, the image on the left is an experiment of semantics. This image is derived on a plate using, I think, liquid on it. It's the Toccata for organ, F major, and it's Johann Sebastian Bach's music. You can see the script-like form, which is naturally formed. Nadkarni wrote, "Here is the mind of a great man offering linear signatures which intrigue, hypnotize and evoke a mode of prayer." The right is basically a Greek tablet, a linear B, an earliest Greek tablet, and I just felt a correlation on the script formations and composition. This is very interesting. According to Suneet Chopra, just look at this work, okay? The top row has figurative elements and those resembling ideograms, and each following row becomes more abstract till the last one appears to be like Arabic script. You can see the transition again. I mean, this maybe even speaks directly of Gaitondi's own practice, correct? And last segment, energy in motion. So here this image is of Alexander Lauter-Wasser, who carried on the study of Hans-Jenny semantics, but he explored only the relation that the relation that sound had on water, on liquid, that's it. So you can see these formations. This is a piano sonata, Beethoven. So you can see the correlations. This image takes you back to that image that I showed you first. Circular images. Then again there's a complete shift in his canvases. I mean, how many shifts, right? But it's beautiful. These are in 1988. These actually looks like a figure, right? I mean, like a tribal form.
What is the shift consists of?
What does it consist of?
Yeah, the shift, we're talking continuously, there is a shift, there is a shift, what is that consists of?
I mean, I just showed you the shifts.
See what I'm feeling like?
From figuration to space formation and color to to complete emptiness and just a couple of strokes, to a complete organic formation, to complete resonances, to this is this last, no, not the last, there's one more. So they are shifts, right? I mean, according to me, they are shifts.
Yeah, that's it. What I'm trying to understand that there are certain kind of certain kind of access he is getting, like suppose Jain philosophy or some.
So
So that's how the shift, like.
So he was completely, he was living a philosophy, and it was not just Zen philosophy, he was a lot in Nisargadatta Maharaj and Ramana Maharshi also. But Zen was the prominent philosophy that he practiced, didn't just read, he actually practiced. But he didn't practice in the literal sense of meditating. For him, painting, being in silence was a meditation. Just being itself is also a very big thing. Like, I mean, just think about it. No, you would stay alone in solitude for days and days to come. Like, people would be scared to go meet him. Like, people actually, I mean, that Mr. Vajpayee and they would speak more of those stories. Like, and when people would go meet him, there was one journalist, who went and met him. She had gone with Ram Kumar, and he was sitting all alone. And I mean, she asked him that, what do you do all day? Like, anybody will ask that question, right? What do you do all day? Like, who do you talk to? So his actual answer was that I talk to the tree which is outside my window. I mean, these are not just statements, right, that a person is making. He was actually living in that zone of energy and silence.
No, what I'm trying to say, like, there is a certain kind of access he's getting that, like somehow, like suppose poverty is one time, one division, or Jain philosophy or whatever philosophy, that's one Jain division. When we say about shift, like suppose you take shift in science experiments, that shift plays the most important thing in discovery. Like so the theory of relativity, that is the one arrival. But before that, which produce that shift, that becomes most important. How do you arrive at that point? So I see that there are two positions. One is like suppose poverty, another suppose Jain philosophy. And in between we call, okay, there is shift, but what is that shift? What is that vacuum or gap? Or what is that? How that is, how that breeze is built?
I would say that itself is his belief and the way he's imbibed the Zen, right? Because he himself says that he transcends these shifts very easily. He transcends these shifts very easily. I mean, I understand what you're saying, like, there is no bridging painting. There's a distinct shift, you know. I mean, I've shown you everything in chronology. It's not that I've missed out on any works. And this is something that even I'm trying to link and connect and draw parallels. So, but I guess that is
I have
what...
one question. I think, does he mean, if I may intervene, that when he's saying shift, and is he talking about the influence, because is he trying to articulate the external aspect that caused the shift, like the Zen or polity, and then this distinctly other kind of
I think
form or color or whatever?
I think Zen is not an external influence. It began as an external
Began,
influence, but then it was imbibed.
That's
Right,
fine,
so-
but that's what he's saying. Was there some, is that what he's saying? I'm just trying to understand.
I think he was very, this is what I presume, I don't know, I never met him, okay, so I don't know, but I presume he was in that state of
Constant evolution.
constant transition and not being restricted. So he was living that spirituality, which is not very easy.
Which spirituality? That.
There's no name technically
So it
to
was
spirituality.
basically his own.
Of course, he imbibed it. So that, as I said, he didn't really sit and meditate literally every day, or he didn't follow, I mean, Zen philosophy doesn't even propound any norms as such, but what is spirituality in the end? It's how you just live it, right? In the end, it doesn't really fit into any branch. They are just paths. They just become the, those sticks. Afterwards, the stick is gone. Now it's actually you walking. And actually, I have much more senior people who can talk about all this than I can, as to how. But what I have observed is between these shifts, you don't see an intermediary work. It's straight, like a complete shift. There's nothing in the middle, Yeah, sorry.
I was having this same questions, and I was thinking maybe, there are some kind of medical conditions like autism, like for instance, we have Kushuma, obsessed with some particular things. Maybe I was wondering if there is any kind of, I don't know, some maybe medical or I don't know, something that made him.
As far as I know, he was sound, right? Physically, Mr. Vajpayee? He was physically sound, right?
Yes, very much. And the other aspect I must mention, because suddenly I was reminded of that, Jason. In this very building, in this very building, and that is quite interesting. This was one side that he would sit in front of his canvas for hours together, would not talk. We were scared to talk to him. Only at the right moment, perhaps we will dare to talk to him. But the other aspect, which I've just reminded, here in this auditorium, Gayatri would come and see all the world cinema, see interested.
Yeah, he loved cinema.
He loved cinema. So that was another aspect. And I remember that once when I interviewed him, I was quite scared. I asked Ram Kumarji to help me.
Yeah, everybody was scared of him,
yes.
right?
So Ram Kumarji was also, for a moment was silent to interview Gayatri. I said, yes, I want to. So finally he talked to Gayatri and I went and interviewed Gayatri. But for half an hour, both of us were sitting just silent. Because I didn't know how to start.
Yes,
He just gave me a glass of water. I remember this till this day, and we were sitting just like that. The electricity gone. There was a candlelight, and there was on easel there was a canvas. So this is one guy only. So, but suddenly when I thought, oh, how to start it? फिर आई सेट गायतोंडे जी, हम लोग उस दिन एक जो फिल्म देख रहे थे वो आपको कैसी लगी थी? और एकदम से वैसे हो रहा जैसे जाग से गए, एंड ही स्टार्टेड टॉकिंग ऑन द फिल्म, आपको कैसी लगी, मुझे कैसी लगी। तो मैं कहना चाह रहा हूँ ये सब बहुत अच्छा है गायतोंडे को समझने के लिए जो आप बता रहे हो। और जितना मैं जानता हूँ कि कोई भी कैसा भी आर्टिस्ट, म्यूजिशियन, डांसर, पेंटर, राइटर, इसका एक एस्पेक्ट भारी एस्पेक्ट है ये, और उसका दूसरा एस्पेक्ट भी है जो बहुत ही कह सकते हैं आप बहुत सहज है, बहुत मानवीय है, बहुत ह्यूमन है। तो इतनी देर से देखते देखते सुनते सुनते आपको बहुत अच्छी तरह आप बता रहे थे और सब देखना बहुत अच्छा लगा। तो लगा नहीं पर दूसरे गायतोंडे भी थे इन विच आई रियली इंटरेस्टेड।
No, but may I say something?
Yeah, sure.
I think that an artist of Gaitonde's stature is not an artist who's fixed on a vision at some point, and then only translating or expanding that vision. In his case, he was intensifying it, exploring it further, and all these shifts are really shifting not necessarily only of the palette or whatever forms or designs he's doing. It's also a shifting of the vision, to look at the vision itself, if not completely askance, at least in terms of whether this can go any further. So I think while these similarities and parallels are very interesting, we must also acknowledge and see that here was an artist of great deep vision. I first went to see him in this Jangpura, Nizamuddin house, and it was, everything had a bit of dust on it, including the record player and the record on it. There was a long playing record and there was dust on it. And after a while, and he spoke very little. We sat just like that. After a while, I started feeling as if there's a lot of dust on all of us, including Gaitonde. But this was one aspect. Some days later, I happened to run him into the IIC bar, and he was so full of wit and mirth and jokes and what you have. So I was very, very puzzled that the Gaitonde that I met in his own house, he was not very welcoming to his guests. He would see very few people. He loved his silence. And I think for artists who are dealing in this kind of a vision and this kind of art, a love and lure of silence is tremendous. They didn't want to be disturbed. And most of us will talk trivialities, कि आज तो ठंड बहुत है, और मैं आ रहा था तो ट्रैफिक बहुत था. Why should man be interested in all this? At best कि मोदी तो वहाँ गड़बड़ कर रहा है, वगैरह वगैरह. So Gaitonde did not exist at that level. So he had, in fact, as I see it, I find him as an artist who is constantly going towards more silence, and yet deepening that silence with meaning and significance, without allowing any particular vision to intervene. So there are similarities, of course, and what it makes out is that many things that were happening in science, creativity has also, imagination, both have a simultaneity. Things are happening simultaneously between people who don't have any access to each other, who don't even know each other. So something might be happening in biology, and something might be happening in music, and something might be happening in neurology and in art. And it can relate in some ways in this simultaneity. So I think, as you see from the earlier works, every time, as you say, there is no intervening period. This is a kind of a style he is pursuing. He is making another what you call shift.
And that shift, in a manner of speaking, is a break. It's a rupture. And in another, if you take a more cosmic or deep view, it's a continuum with different rhythms. That rhythm changes, it changes its hues and shapes and things that kind, but it continues. So I think a great artist is one who both changes and remains the same.
I think the inner core, what you're saying, even I feel that while viewing his work in this way, that there is an inner core that is not disturbed. That is silently there and it's not disturbed. Like you see a guy only and then I'm seeing this, and between this huge journey, there is some chord that the inner core is there, which I sense. Just as an artist, just as a...
There is an intuitive rhythm.
Have you concluded? We started discussing.
No, it's okay. There's just 2 more images.
So
Shifts again. 2 more shifts.
Go ahead, then we'll respond with our questions.
Yes.
They're just resonant, of a similar tribal form. And he even calls one of these works Devi. And these are the last canvases, and he literally is saying that this is the fan. Because he had actually met an accident, so his neck was in a bit tilted, and he would just be sitting in this posture all day and be looking at the fan. So, very simply, this is the fan. So simple. Like he didn't think, right? He just was seeing it every day, he was experiencing it, and he painted it. That's it. That's a correlation I'm making. That's an image of a harmonic chant on a plate. So your voice. That's him. I didn't show you his image. And this is his favorite quote. The scene ceased. There is nothing left of destiny. I did not come, nor did I go. What happens in between is illusion. So beautiful. That's a Marathi poet. Sohiro Banat Ambiye. Sohiro Banat Ambiye. That's it. Thank you.
Now the questions.
I have a question. What was his style of...
As I said, I've not met him. Okay, so I don't know these answers, but they could be better. But I'll just tell you what I know. In the 60s and the 70s, he really painted a lot. That's why you see a lot of, I don't know if I've shown you, but he did a lot of canvases at that time. And one canvas went on for days because he had a particular way of painting, and that's why the translucency you can feel in his paintings. He would let the paintings dry for days and days and days to come, and put layers and layers and layers. They were all in oil. So of course later in the 80s he painted lesser because he didn't feel the need to, and after his accident it was much lesser because of physical conditions. But in fact there's a quote somewhere in the book where he doesn't feel that he's not painting. He feels that the painting is still going on in his mind. It's just a question of putting it on the canvas, but he never felt frustrated, right? Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that had happened to both these painters, you see, Progressive Artists Group and their associates, some of them are very prolific, like Hussain,
Souza,
to a lesser degree, but Raza. But some of them were very and Gaidonde.
Very recluse.
Their number of works is not very large. They did not paint too much. So there is both kinds were, and both of them were part of the...
Like you can actually hand count Gaidonde's paintings would be 250, including paperworks. Or maximum, I would say 300 or 400, max.
Yeah.
Not more, for sure.
The other thing interesting from the point of view of art criticism is what we in literature call the biographical fallacy. Which fallacy is that you come to know about the life, circumstances initially, and try to relate his art to that. It may work, most of the times it doesn't work.
Yes.
Because the artists, through their art, supersede their life. They are not necessarily bound by that life or caged by that life, and you cannot explain everything in terms of life. Because art becomes for such artists a parallel life, a life away from life, in that sense that the given life, the lived life, so you have writers and artists who had hugely tense relationship with their families and their neighbors and with their friends and such like, and they produce great art. I mean, even some of the great ones like Gandhi had a strange relationship with his son, and Marx was quite cruel to his wife and things of that kind. But that is because the other life, a life of ideas, a life of action, a life of imagination, becomes more important and becomes more dominating than the other life. And in any case, you would not be interested in the other life but for this life of art. Who would be interested in somebody born in here and there? And there are any number of students who come out of JJ School of Art, and hardly anybody ever became Gaitonde.
Don't ask me, ask her.
I want to respond to what you said actually.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So
Take this.
I was thinking that I had a little bit of trouble drawing a line between the art practice and the lived life of an artist, because I believe that it is very much situated in the lived experience of the artist. The art practice is a part of his life. So I was thinking whether when you are writing this book, then what were the difficult questions that you had to struggle with, like what are the aspects which you thought that is very important to include, and what are the aspects that you could do away with? Probably, suppose like there are certain things which I had questions about while I was looking at the presentation. For example, where was he living while he was doing certain things? How was he earning? What was the kind of money he was getting? So these were the questions. Why did he choose certain material to work with? What was the kind of advantages or disadvantages he had when it came to art material? So these were very specific questions located in the situation in which he was living, the social context. So I was thinking, responding to what Sir said, that whether it is actually that easy to draw the line that you can probably, if an artist is working on choosing to work on labor, अगर लेबर की पिक्चर बना रहे हैं, suppose travel art में some artist from the urban scenario is doing art on labor, so उसका what is the stakes he have, the kind of stakes that he has on that community's identity. So I was thinking whether you can actually draw a line like that when you are working on certain aspects which is not abstract, probably. It is not abstract, then how do you deal with this question? And how do you situate his practice in the time he was living in?
So the book that has been published is completely biographical, which actually has all these answers. Okay, I'm just clarifying. I just wanted to take a detour in the presentation and speak about his visuals and not his life. So Gaitonde in a way has been a bit lucky. He's had his paintings used to sell, not that much, but he had support. And that time, the artists also supported one another. So there was Bal Chavda, there was Krishan Khanna, Akbar Padamsi, Ram Kumar, who would buy the paintings from friends. Like if Gaitonde did an exhibition, then Krishan Khanna would buy 2 works, Bal Chavda would buy 2 works. They would understand because they were of a better. They had the financial resources. In fact, Gaitonde lived with Bal Chavda for many years in Bombay when he came back from America because he didn't want to go back home. Then when he moved to to Delhi, he was very well taken care of by Krishan Khanna and Ram Kumar. Ram Kumar would send him a tiffin every day, literally every day.
Yes.
But when you go and talk to Ram Kumar to ask him, okay, what were the conversations like? Imagine a person is sending you a tiffin every day. That means they're very close, right? To Ram Kumar has nothing to say, because he would say when we would go out for walks, we would just be quiet. There would be no conversation. But they had that relation.
Bonding.
So, and Gaitondi's paintings was selling. I mean, he had galleries, he had exhibitions, he had very good collectors collecting their works, and he didn't really care much because he didn't have a responsibility in a sense. Like he didn't have to. He cut off from his family, literally. That he didn't go for his own mother's death. He didn't go. So he didn't get cut off. Now that is also a very difficult position to take, to disconnect from your family in this manner. I mean, right? I mean, it's not easy to just cut off. I mean, come on, we are all emotional, but you don't feel that sense of harshness in his paintings, right? You feel such a sense of beauty and warmth and oneness. So he didn't let that affect him, according to me. He accepted that as a reality, that it's, So, in Gaitondi's case, I think he was painting and he was very clear that if he wanted the money, he would sell one, and his painting sold, technically, I mean, anything else other than,
Yeah, once Ram Kumar asked Gayatondi, why do you paint only 5 paintings? Because there are many buyers.
Yeah.
He said, no, I don't want to paint more. But for 1 year, 5 paintings is enough.
It's enough.
Money which comes.
Yeah.
So I can pay rent, I can have food.
There's an incident even.
So he doesn't paint, D.H. Lawrence, he started painting and he had an exhibition of his paintings, and then he started writing his catalog. So in this catalog he writes that there are 2 kinds of painters. One who paints from intuition and the other one who paints from convention. So Gayatondi was a painter who waits for intuition to come and then only he will paint. And Hussain on the other hand, he was painting conventionally and reaching to the intuition.
तो ये भी काफ़ी इंटरेस्टिंग है कि सब लोग अलग अलग स्वभाव के, हुसैन, राम कुमार, सभी अलग अलग स्वभाव के,
लेकिन सब एक साथ थे।
बॉन्डिंग बहुत जबरदस्त बॉन्डिंग थी।
In fact, Hussain has written an article that I am only famous, but Gayatondi is a genius.
And Gayatondi was a painter of painters actually. All the painters, they used to love him and like him,
But this thing about money, I want to say that he didn't want to earn that much money, but that doesn't mean that he was stingy using it. He splurged his money. He wanted the best of clothes, the best of shirts. He loved watching films, so he would go for all the movies and he would pay for his fellow artists also, like Lakshman Shrestha.
Did he have a family?
As I said, he didn't get married.
So he was all alone.
He was literally all alone. Yeah.
So in a way, it makes sense. Do you say that he's a bit eccentric?
No, he was not eccentric at all. He was extremely humorous. He had intelligent conversations with people. You can ask Mr. Vajpayee the conversations he had with people. He didn't have useless conversations on weather and politics. I've never heard anyone talking about these things. So he was not an eccentric. He was a yogi. He was by himself. And what is wrong in being by yourself?
Art is actually reflecting his life.
Exactly.
He lived minimally and his art.
So, just an incident when he was in America and he had a couple of exhibitions there. So his painting sold. Okay, and he got a lot of money in dollars. Krishan Khanna was there. He immediately went and bought shirts, and he bought the most expensive shirts. So he loved expensive things. He loved food. Another incident is about a person who went visited his house, and he just saw a bag of money lying there. And he was like, "Don't you want to keep it in the cupboard?" So there's no need to keep money in the cupboard. Just let it be. And it was literally lying in the plastic bag. So I mean, he didn't really care.
I have a couple of questions.
And he was very humorous.
can you please explain his process of
painting?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, in between you were saying about semantics. So
semantics, yeah, not semantics, semantics.
Semantics, okay. The sound and I thought, okay, right. And one more thing, in the beginning you were talking about, I mean, you were mentioning Western and Indian abstraction, the use of. So can you actually explain and differentiate what you mean?
Wow. Okay, his process. We are still trying to understand his process because he never really painted in front of anyone, and that's one of the researches I'm pursuing. Is I'm trying to see as much as I can, because when you see it original, it talks to you, it speaks to you about the brush strokes, about what must have happened. So I know that there was always a layer. You know, there was always a flat, translucent layer on the canvas, and then he started doing whatever he had to do. The organic forms, how did he create them? I mean, very, very simple. They just sound very kiddish, but he would just cut out from National Geography magazine. He loved reading about geography and nature, and after it's done, he would use them. So he would just cut out varied shapes. He would put them on his canvases, compose them the way he wanted, and he used the roller. So he used the roller. There was hardly the use of brush. It was the roller and it was the knife.
Yeah,
in the early 60s and 70s, I'm sorry I missed out on all these things. I was just so focused on the visual, I didn't speak about this. Yeah, the earlier works, the 60s and the 70s, which were more Zen-like, is more the knife. And then he moves to the roller.
You showed some like lithograph.
Yeah, only one lithograph.
One lithograph and some experiments with, I mean, palpation.
Those are my interpretation.
Yeah.
He's not. I don't know. He was in his own dhun. He was in his own thing. These are my correlations that I'm making.
Okay.
He was in his own thing. That's my interpretation, which could be wrong.
Did he ever try to shift his mediums to others? Like he was painting only. So had he ever tried
ink on paper?
Like you talked about his shift all these years when he was painting. So had he ever changed his mind? Like I have done with paintings and I have to done some sculptures.
No, so he did. No. He never did any sculptures. But he did one collage, which I think I showed you all. That's it.
You're telling that he has used geographical magazines and using rollers.
He's used geographical magazines as a cutout on the painting to just get the form. He didn't paste those geographical. He didn't use those cutouts as part. Let me just show you.
Stencil.
Yeah, just like a stencil.
Yeah, and I think that paper absorbs well also.
Yes, like these are cutouts. Can you see these organic shapes? He didn't paint them.
70s, 80s,
Oh, okay. He made stencils
and he just pasted them and then he painted. Then he removed them and with the roller, no using of brush. That's why you can see outlines, no?
Yeah, that's why it has got a different
feel.
I have 3 points to make. The first point is this, what you were saying, core relationship. I'm taking that as something which is visual resemblance. Like in visual art, lot of time we talk about visual resemblance. So it can happen that my work can resemble to your image, which is visually, pictorial. It's easy to just to grab it visually. There are which is interesting because what happens is visual resemblance. So I'm giving one example. Suppose I will be in London. So someone can tell me I am a Bangladeshi or Sri Lankan or Indian or Pakistani with the visual resemblance because of that thing. If that resemblance brings something which is interesting or extend the dialogue, or suppose that tells me I am an international, at least South Asian, my identity can stand for South Asian or represent the South Indian, Asian identity, then there is a interesting point. but there also has a crisis to the idea of resembling, because if someone resemble my face to some terrorist or something, then there is also a crisis, there is a problem. So I think we should look at both the idea, because here where there is a positivity, there is a plus, so we are adding that always happens. This is one. So we have to because what I find, this juxtaposition did not bring something substantial or something critical to the practice, because they never interacted. And one example I will give, in science, when evolution happens, one stone here, or the way language developed, the way animal or human developed their language. So suppose human, we got our language here, at the same time man in Africa also, they can develop without knowing that.
Yeah.
But the problem is, because now we are kind of detached from the nature in the very rigid sense, what is nature, and we are living in our socio-political, cultural conditions. So it's very difficult to say my form cells resembling to the scientific discovery which is done in the 17th century. It's not it's not perfect, because that the scientists drawing what you saw, the music movement and all those, that's a tremendous development which in India we did not do technologically or scientifically or whatever way. So, but there is abstract relationship. So that one. Second thing is, in the critical discourse of abstract art, we should think, there is very interesting thing, Master Duchamp said about Rothko's painting. When Rothko displayed his work in Paris, 2 women committed suicide. That became very, it became a news, because those women were overwhelmed by the color. So somebody asked Duchamp that what do you understand, what do you see? So Duchamp said that the abstraction today, in 100 years, that abstraction will not remain as abstract. That's why when you are asking that, for me these are not abstract. For me, the way I am seeing through that dialogue, Jackson Pollock is not an abstract painter anymore, or Rothko is not an abstract painter anymore. That's why Gaitonde is not an abstract painter, or Raza is not an abstract painter anymore, because when you saw, you asked, he could say, this is Gaitonde, this is Paupley, without knowing the labels. I can see this is Raza. Anyone can say this is Raza. So that means I am reading that, I understand that visual vocabulary. That's no more abstract. Abstract, something it's abstract. It will always be abstract. So suppose theory of relativity, that can be abstract subject for a model. But for me, it's not abstract. So we have to locate what is abstract for us. Abstract, the way I understand today, demonetization is an abstract form for a lot of people who do not understand what is, or the GST or any things are coming, people are throwing ideas to you and you don't understand that, you don't deal with that, that's the abstraction you deal with. Or suppose the killing in Afghanistan is abstraction for the people in US, or the killing of Muslim or lynching of Muslim is abstraction for a Hindu man to understand that it's a killing.
I have something to tell you.
So that's
you were saying that abstraction means something which you cannot understand.
Yeah.
Are you saying that?
It's not that.
Abstract, I'm saying the abstract is abstract. There is no form or anything you read abstract. You can't read abstraction. Abstraction is beyond your...
No, I think, okay, you
the moment you read it, you decode it, and then there is no abstraction there.
But
recognizing, if it is decoding rather than just saying this is Raza.
How do you identify this is Raza? There is nothing says which is Raza. That's why
abstraction in visual language and abstraction in your everyday life, I think we have to make a kind of distinction.
Why?
And there is, coming back to your presentation, there is a tradition, we are trying to do a parallel, drawing parallel in the West. So we have to use, I want to bring the spiritual in art by Kandinsky.
See, there is a huge market of fake market of abstract art, you know that?
One second. No, I let's use words very carefully right now. Okay. Fake. What is it? Fake
market
of abstract art. What does it mean first? Explain that.
There are a lot of artists who can imitate or fake the abstract print like Jackson Pollock or something, which is easier to do it because that's what I'm saying.
But that fakeness is felt.
No, it's not. It did not fail.
It is felt.
No.
I'm sorry. No, it is felt. A fake.
You are now talking like a corporate people who have millions of people.
No, I'm sorry.
How fake fail? Come on, we have all the pirated movies in our.
Let's not shift from movies to paintings. Let's
everything, all the fake way existing, our whole intellectual.
I'm talking about Gaitonde and I'm talking about visual art. So let's talk about fake abstract paintings. Okay, what does it mean first? You mean that people are faking a Gaitonde or people who are faking the sense of abstraction? There's a difference between the two. Explain me.
That the language Gaitonde spoke without going to his personal how he was witty or something. I can do this.
Do
it.
Do it.
Well, I can paint it.
Do it.
See.
No. Do it. Hello. No, I'm serious. This is. Do it. Give your life and do this. Come on.
No, not life.
It is. He has given. Hello.
She spent years trying to understand that creative process. How will you do it? If you tell me, she would like to write that book again.
No.
No, you do.
No, listen. Listen. What's his name? What's your name? Sorry. Parivartan. Hi.
So how that?
Parivartan. Can you hear me without the mic? It's a little disturbing. So we can just have a conversation. I want to listen. You know this question.
Visible. That's no more abstract.
No, this
forms are visible. The form can be painted, can be done repetitively, and the artist, the way artists did, the way I understand modernism, they imitate themselves. That's why they were like.
But Gaitonde didn't imitate himself. You can see that.
He can still without knowing the.
Because 1 second, how old is he? How time and age makes a lot of difference. How old is he?
But did you understand what Dishra said to the first quote I made? This argument is based on Dishra's argument that your abstraction will in 100 years will not become abstract.
So of course the concept of abstraction is changing with time. I don't deny it. I'm not denying that statement. What I'm saying is this fake? I'm focusing on you that don't sway. We're talking about fake abstract art, right? That's your question?
That's not my question. That's a proposition. When she asked about a technique, I suddenly told her that ask a fake who is doing fake of Gaitonde, ask him because he knows the technology.
No, I'm sorry.
Differentiate an original from a fake Gaitonde.
See, that's the
process is so intricate.
There is a sense of feeling, no? Also, there's no emotion only in painting. I'm just sorry. Is there a sense of feeling and emotion in a painting? Oh, kuch hai hi nahi.
No,
this is so you have reduced it to a corporate. That means this bottle and this bottle has the same water. That's a material thing. How can you compare a plastic bottle or a sense of an actual light, which is a diya, and a night like a electrically lit light?
That's very subjective.
No, it's not subjective. It is visual. It is a visual. This is an experience. This is an experience.
I don't feel anything with this painting.
Excuse me.
But that's your.
Can I tell you an
Emotion is always
experience?
subjective.
But that's your preference that you don't like his paintings. I can't do anything to it. I'm so sorry.
Do we agree it's subjective or not? I can't.
Art is subjective. This is my subjective interpretation, right?
If it is not subjective, then what? It's like.
So art is subjective.
Perception studies tells you this, that it is subjective. Everybody reads an artwork differently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now you might not see these parallel. This is clearly, I'm saying it. No, at the beginning I said this is my parallel thing. You may agree, you may not agree. I also may change. I don't know. I mean, it's life, yeah. We all change and grow, right?
I'll tell you, there was
I think we have to move from this here.
There was an exhibition of KGS.
I didn't understand your question actually.
Like this, I can tell you, fake. You are telling about the fake paintings and everything, but there are masters who can identify it. There was an exhibition going on about like the works of KGS, and my guide, Professor R. Shivakumar, could identify the fake paintings of KGS.
Of course.
And, like there are masters who identify this.
Yeah, so when you see a lot, your eyes get trained. That is called training. Like, why are you saying he recognized it? Because he's seen. He's seeing it with such devotion, with such sincerity. He has been seeing his practice. He's aware of it. Now, I don't know if you all have seen so much of his. I myself had not seen so much of his.
Yeah, but if you go to any Western museum, how many, you can't call it fake, you can't call it because they are remaking. There are many paintings, they are now taking from the...
I agree.
They're putting
in digital form.
And people get emotional with that painting. With the historical back, like Van Gogh is the most favorite artist in the art schools. I think Van Gogh and the Jackson Pollock, they both are so favorite in the art school, not because every student who comes to the art college, they study them. Because of the
I agree, exactly. So there are different levels of excitement also, na. Like today, a bottle of water may excite me, but for you, maybe you'll want a bottle of wine to excite you. So that is subjective,
but it's not
right?
created a story which made Van Gogh or Jackson Pollock.
Yeah, it is a
This
painting.
is work actually, and whosoever is looking at his work, he can understand very clearly. It's a different way of seeing. So you can't say that, it's the story around an artist makes an artist. All the myths, created after his death, is not during his lifetime. Nobody used to see his work. It was never accepted in any exhibition.
In fact, Van Gogh's
So Van Gogh lived all his life without any appreciation of any kind. So now you are saying that Van Gogh is made out of stories and whatever is being told about him.
It's not true. Yes,
is his work.
There will be myths about artists, and why not? I mean, I see no particular objection that an artist is mythologized. We have mythologized all kinds of people. Why not artists?
But then there would be a question that your mythology will be more valid than my mythology because you have the access to the So the story you are making...
No, just a second. It is not her mythology.
Exactly.
You check many quotes, wherever...
I didn't meet him. I have researched on this for 10 years. Hello. It's not like 1 year or 2 days, yeah. Sorry, but...
So 10 years में क्या 2 साल से हूँ आर्ट में मेरे तो 15 साल 16 साल कितना हो गया मेरा आर्ट में 10 साल से see
sorry, I think you're going on a wrong tangent.
You are not understanding my point. You are like unnecessarily arguing that you are. I am not questioning on your research. I am not saying you are incapable.
You just said that I have used so many quotes.
I said simply first argument is this is not abstract. We should understand the idea of what is abstract. That's why I explained.
No, that is you have explained, sir. Nice now. We have understood that is your idea of abstract. But that is not generally accepted idea of abstract. You think that which cannot be understood is abstract.
Yeah.
This is a very simplistic and almost stupid definition, if I put it.
That's simple.
No, it's simple but it's stupid because it does not take into account a lot of abstraction that has taken place in various forms of art in the first place. Please, now you have had your say, right? So I also have my say and you should not interrupt. You have interrupted enough. Secondly, there will always be myths about artists. Yes, there are myths about many people. And there's nothing wrong with it. How does that myth come into being? It is not simply, mostly these myths are posthumous. Those people are not even alive. We had a great poet called Vedanand Madhavukti. He died at the age of 47. He could not publish a single book of his poems during his lifetime. Today, he is considered to be one of the most outstanding poets for the last 50-60 years. He had nothing to do with that myth. That myth has been made by those who came later and who find worth and meaning and significance in it. There will come a time when those who have not participated in that myth making will get either influenced by that myth or may question it. They have every right to do so.
Yeah.
Fine. There is no difficulty. But if you want to reduce everything to subjectivity, then you will be entering an area of relativism in which everything is justified. Because subjectivity will be different. To a certain extent, subjectivity makes a difference. you can take a work of art and interpret in several ways, right? Somebody may say that this is the product of its age. Somebody would say that no, this is not a product of its age, is questioning that age. Somebody would say it has nothing to do with age. It is not a matter of history, it's a matter of eternity, etc., etc. There will be different ways of looking at it. And always, but they will all have to fall within the area of dialogue and consensus. After all, great masters do not become great by their personal intervention. They become by a broad critical consensus. That critical consensus may change. I can again give you an example from literature. T.S. Eliot came and he thought that the metaphysical poets have not been given their place. So he pushed the great Miltonic poets and epic poets and said, no, metaphysics. After a while, towards the end of his life, he reconsidered the matter. And he said, no, that's not proper. I had pushed them behind, they should come. So there will be different times and different pressures and tensions which will work. But within the area of significance, you can come and question, let us say, the significance given to a particular artist. You do not agree that this is a painting which appeals to you. That's fine, you have every right to say that. But you cannot insist that others should agree. You should not insist that my subjectivity is better than yours. Just because you have been at it for 15 years and she has been there for 10 years.
I did not do that.
You do that.
I said that, of course it was abstract in a time when it is made.
Again, we are coming back to, you see, your notion of the abstract is your cage.
Yeah.
Please carry your cage.
Yeah.
Why are you want to inflict that cage on us free birds? We don't have that kind of a cage. We have a different kind of cage. Everyone has a right to have its own cage. You are saying that you do not consider, and you come back to it again and again. Why? What are you going to achieve by it? None of us is convinced by your definition of abstract.
No, it's not.
Give me here one person.
It's not.
There is none. Nobody agrees with your definition.
No,
but you have every right to have it. We are not objecting to it. But you cannot insist that this should be...
I'm not insisting.
You are insisting by coming back to it again and again.
I'm not insisting. I'm talking about a language which is legible, which is audible, which is understandable. So I'm saying that language...
These are not qualities of the abstract. These are not qualities of non-abstraction either. There is great philosophical works which are purely abstract. Wittgenstein. Read Wittgenstein. It's both very communicable but highly abstract. He was considered to be a great philosopher of his time, and he was teaching in Cambridge. He wrote only one small book, which are kind of epigrams. Similarly, like Paul Klee, who wrote epigrams. There are many who haven't done this. Gaitonde hasn't done it, Hussain hasn't done it, Ram Kumar hasn't done it. Many people haven't done it, have not written. That's all right. You see, the point is that the area of significance is plural enough, but it is not a dictatorial area. Nothing can be dictated in that area, but there can be people. There are people who may not agree that Gaitonde was a great painter. That's fine, but you have to prove it that he was not. It's not a matter of opinion that you give an opinion. I don't consider this. So on. Who are you?
No, that's I was trying to prove. I was trying to explain my point. But I was not being dictator and imposing my idea. I never do that. I never impose my idea. I told my idea.
Since it is reaching a dead end, let us put an end.
So I want to ask you one question. Sir, would you agree that it's also a way of viewing that creates a certain impact, an artwork creates a certain impact? Because the fan image which you showed me, I have seen that work before, but it didn't create, it created a different kind of impact, let's say, than what happened when I saw it as a process. Like I saw it as an evolution of work and then the fan came. So then it created a much different impact.
There is a way of seeing and there is a way of non-seeing. Most of us do not see. We non-see. We think just physically you have looked at it and it doesn't appeal to you for whatever reasons. And that is non-see. If you look at a work patiently and intently, you may find a different meaning than what she did. You may not find a kind of a fan. You may find something else. This is fine. One of the reasons why abstract art has the possibility, it gives you the freedom of interpreting in very different ways. Because there is no fixed meaning. In fact, on all art, whether figurative or non-figurative, there is no fixed meaning. The meaning is partly created by the viewer, by the listener, by the reader. These are participative truths. They are not singular truths given to you like a samosa for you to eat it up. Whether you like it or not, I don't like samosa, I don't like this. That's not the kind of truth that arts offer. Arts offer you participative truth, which means that you should add a bit of your truth to that to make the. That's why there are so many interpretations of the same work of art. There are so many interpretations of the same poem. There are so many interpretations of the same rag or all that. This is because each person will have a different view. But all this must happen within the area of criticality, of dialogue, of discussion.
I just want to not ask you, but I just want to add something to your point. You were trying to draw on the trajectory of Western abstraction some way. You know, you talked about Kandinsky a little bit, and then some others, Paul Klee. So and there was a group, Blue Writer. Yeah. And they came out with a publication, Spiritual in Art.
Yeah.
And Kandinsky and Franz Marc played very important role, very significant role. And they theorized it in this spiritual in art. But the whole idea of spirituality, we have to go a little back in Western modern art. We have to go to the Impressionism, you know. They were also trying to draw a lot of inspiration from Zen. If you look at the work of Monet, and then later post-Impressionism, Gauguin,
even Van Gogh.
Then who else? Renoir. Renoir was the first guy who talked about music. You know, and then you see in Kandinsky work the rhythm number, composition number. Then there is a musical. Those musical signs are also there in those paintings, but the thing is that then Western art history goes further. Then it comes to somewhere near World War I and then World War II, in which we see abstract expressionism, where Jackson Pollock comes, as well as also we see Man Ray in surrealism. He also connected with the idea of music. But all this trajectory, if you see the trajectory of Western art, you see there is some kind of human condition. Social order is being shown or experienced or interpreted by different artists or different people. So my question is how we interpret our modernity or our experience of modern in India. You're saying he is very individualized artist. There is no social relation involved in that. And then you go into Zen, because Zen philosophy, Chinese art, today contemporary Chinese art, they don't buy anything from Western art. They totally stay away from those theories. You know, so how we stage our modernity or our sense of modern in this paradigm of Gaitonde. That's my question.
That's a long question, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and actually I don't know what to say to this.
Can I use that?
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Can I just
You can one-liner, two-liner. That's it.
Means how is Gaitonde defined?
I mean, because you are trying to build up the entire spectrum, you know, of West, from Zen, from some Indian sources also of spirituality. So how we place this spirituality in the social relation of conditionality of modern
This is
India.
going to be a book, okay, so wait for the book to come, but
Still, you have to have some idea.
So, I felt that's an argument I'm trying to make slowly, and that is why this presentation is the first presentation. I feel and you can please correct me if I'm wrong, okay? We have our own foundations of abstraction. And according to me, Gaitonde and Nisreen were the first subtle ones. As I've shown, I didn't compare Gaitonde to Rothko. What I was showing, that Gaitonde started doing those kind of works much before he went to America and saw Rothko's work. There is a distinctness in Gaitonde's abstraction and Mark Rothko's. In Mark Rothko, you can feel a chilling sense of death and silence. You know, not a happy sense, these are experiences again that one has to, and it's not my experience, it's people have written in this manner, right? So, I think we are still finding our roots, I would say, and to study things in this manner, to study an artist in this manner, seeing the trajectory,
Okay. May I help you?
Sure, please do.
Like, let's say, let's think about Raza. You know,
Yeah.
because I was doing research, and I was looking at the Hindi criticism about Raza in Hindi.
See,
yeah, please.
We out here, I feel that we are very weighed by Western and European theories. So I think we need to just start. Yeah, it is there. They're very strong because see, abstract expressionism, Clement Greenberg.
Yes.
It was after World War II.
Yes.
It was a compulsive effort to put America on the map, to show that.
Compulsive effort
by the critics.
Okay.
Like Jackson Pollock was, we all know that he actually was, he saw the Native American sand painting. That is where what inspired him or moved him to do what he was doing, the drip technique. And he studied Krishnamurti. Okay? So these aspects are never brought in the forefront. Because I feel even a theoretical formation of any nation is a political stand.
True.
Right? So we've still not done that, I feel. We're still doing it. We're still in the process of doing it. So I don't have an answer. Sorry.
No, yeah, you were right.
Yeah, we are still in the way, like this is a process, you know. Do you guys want to say something?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No, I was saying something, the abstraction in West arrived through the cancellation of the figure.
Yeah.
And in India they say, tradition of Sagun Nirgun Padmanayam. To my mind, the first abstract sculpture is Shivling.
Yeah.
This is the most abstract way of thinking and putting up and making a stone like that.
Correct.
So this is just what I wanted to.
And see, the other thing was even like Gaitonde passed away in 2001. Thanks. But this is not about myself. It's just to show. Okay, so a book had been released just 2 years ago in 2016 on him. Correct. And all these years, he was labelled as his art is influenced by Paul Klee and is influenced by Mark Rothko. But no, he's not influenced. So to prove that also, took this research, took this timeline. And we don't have a history of archiving, of documenting. The artist himself didn't speak much. So it's like digging in the grave, digging in a desert.
Would you share how did you went about this?
Oh, how I went about it. It's another session on how I went about it. It was not easy.
The thing is that now there shouldn't be any guilt of we are using, because now there are a lot of post-colonial departments are being set up in universities.
I totally agree. So that's what I'm just trying to show, and I'm doing a couple of more books on Gaitonde. What I'm just trying, it's not just Gaitonde, it's rehistoricizing certain artists. We're just trying to reconnect and reposition them. That's it. You know, that's all. So even this whole attempt of this research and this presentation was just to re-look at Gaitonde in a different way, and not look at the painting and say, okay, this was inspired by Rothko. No, this was done before he seen Rothko. Yeah. So he was influenced by Paul Klee. There's no argument about that. But there's what has he taken? Right? I mean, have you ever heard of a Western artist in his, being boasted about the way he was influenced by this? No. So criticism cannot be, even in, like, if we are talking about art criticism and analyzing an artist, it cannot always be, okay, this is from this is from that. Let's analyze it, properly. Let's look at it. As Sir said, seeing. We're not seeing only properly. We're just seeing it and saying, oh, this looks like this. We just pass it off.
Yes.
Right?
True.
So, certain artists in our country like Gaitonde, Nasreen, Himmat Shah, Gade, I have not shown you all. Gade is very early works, but very, very same as Gaitonde. It's not that they were copying each other. It was just that at that time, all the artists were just maybe exploring the same thing. But it's interesting to know what they were doing. In the 60s, everybody was doing abstraction. Why? Because it was this entire thing that the West is also doing abstraction. Okay, we were finding our ground. We were following. We were toddlers.
We can say that nation building project is still going on. Still we are exploring.
We do have amazing books. Geeta Kapoor's When Was Modernism? But that's again not the final word.
Yes,
there can be more explorations. There can be new artists. There can be new trajectories. Like there is no book on abstraction. I think this is the first session that's focusing on abstraction in a different way. So abstraction in our country has always just been, abstraction means just putting color. No, that's not just abstraction. There's a lot that goes into it. Like Sudhir Patwardhan's work is, according to me, also abstract, right? It's figurative, but it's abstract. Miniature art is so abstract. So we need to coin and define our own definitions, theorize our own definitions, and I guess these conversations will help, and arguments too.
Sorry, you forgot to answer my question.
East-West.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a book. You see the book. I can't answer. It's like you're asking me how do you see East and West in Gaitonde?
No, not okay. That. Like, you were saying the idioms of West and Eastern abstraction.
So So my question is to you. I've shown you this entire presentation. Like, don't you feel that he's actually synthesized two, like not just two, but various cultural philosophies and idioms, not just India and West, or not the East and the West, but there is miniature, there's a sense of perspective, there is a sense of color, right? There is a sense of composition, there is a sense of space which comes from the idea of just using a complete canvas as a space. So, sorry, but
like I want to know that, the idioms, what you mean by that idioms of Western abstraction and Indian abstraction. Is there like something like that exists?
Western abstract idioms do exist, Indian still don't. Sorry.
They haven't been explored.
They've not been explored. They exist. Sorry.
Theory
correct.
India, which goes back to Rig Veda.
Unfortunately,
the book that you're getting, that might just be the big breakthrough in critical study in India.
So actually, that's what I want to ask. What do you think about that? Like, what is your explanation about that?
I'm working towards my explanation.
Okay.
I'm hoping that in the next 2 years there is a concrete. Sorry, but I can't really just answer that in one sentence, right? Sorry. We're still exploring. हम ढूंढ रहे हैं.
Well, friends, now we should conclude. Normally the word in most Indian languages used for abstract is amurt. And the word came from the fact murt, figurative, amurt. The more Indian word is Atma Pratishtha, which was used very early in the text, where there could be a work of art which has to be understood in reference to something outside, the outside reality, the outside scene, the outside, anything outside. So you have to seek the reference from outside. Atma Pratisht is the word which says it is in itself. It is Pratishthit in its own self. It doesn't seek validation from outside. And there is a very interesting episode with which I am a great one at giving you episodes. Episode is that Bharata has written his Natya Shastra and he took it to Shiva. And Shiva got through it and approved of it, but asked him that isme Tandu dalo. Tandu was a form of dance which was totally abstract. It has no narrative. It is just tal and lay. It is no narrative. What we call nritta, which is without any emotion or description of this thing. Now poor Bharat got puzzled because after all theatre is born out of human action. How can this find a way but now Shiva has ordained, so he cannot defy Shiva. So what he does is, he says that this will be, Tandu will be Shobha. So it will be kind of adoration, adornment of theatre. It is not part of theatre in the sense. So the nritta, now here is a clever way of providing a space. And that space was provided in Natya Shastra. So it is, and then it's analysis when Abhinavgupta came up with the analysis. He came up with the notion of Atma Pratisht, that this is Atma Pratisht. It doesn't need any reference, and the others are not Atma Pratisht. So it is a better word because it creates that non-referential autonomy, which is different from a referential mode. Anyway, now let's go and have some tea, then you'll have to go to that exhibition, and tomorrow we meet again. Unfortunately, there have been some, how do you say it, fallouts or calamities, in the sense that today Krishan Khanna fell ill and Ghulam Sheikh also is not well. Giti Singh had a sore throat, so sore that she could not speak. So we have to find a way of accommodating them if our throat improves. Let's see. So you will have to sort of bear with these little empty spaces in between, but by discussion and some heat that we generate. All right. Thank you.
Today, I had some talk about a subject which has not been officially
Tomorrow is your day, sir. No, because I will ask you questions because your book is
Giving space is not what I excuse me.
preferably of younger people. One curated by a professional curator, the other curated by an artist. So the first one was placed last year when we had a show carrying roots along the way. I said, what good are roots if you can't carry them along? This one is by a curator, Raza from Bombay. And we leave the matter to the curator. It is for the curator to decide whom to invite, whatever. So in this case, the curator was Asha Lokhandwala, and she decided that we would have those artists of Indian origin who are now living in North America. And this is 15 artists here. And there are two senior artists. One is Krishna Reddy, who's nearly 90. And the other is Zarina Hashmi, who's also quite senior. But other than that, they're younger people. And this is in two parts, there and here. So the idea was to expose you to real art, which sometimes you see in pictures. आजकल हालांकि बड़े अच्छी तस्वीरें छप जाती हैं digital. Lekin to see a work of art, and I know you are tired through the day. We have bombarded you with many things. But anyway, now that you are here, spend some time, have a look. And tomorrow we'll take you to a show which is curated by Akhilesh at the Triveni Sridharani Art Gallery. One of the important things for art critics is to see art, and to see as much of it as possible, but also patient. One of the points that I have against the Indian Art Fair is too much art. So it is so much that it's physically exhausting and is visually also exhausting. You stop seeing.
So this year was better. This year was better.
But then, still, it's much better to see a lot than not to see. But seeing in case of an art critic is a special kind of seeing. As I told you in the morning, don't rush into judging. This is good or bad. हमारी आजकल tendency है ना, we have no, and it requires both patience and humility. I'll just take a minute. Come here. Here is a lady called
Amina Ahmed.
Amina Ahmed.
Kutch.
Now she is using carbon paper. This is done on carbon. Well, it is a hell of a bloody job to do this. It requires not only subtlety or complexity, sheer physical work. Art is also a very physical work. W.B. Yeats has a famous line, let us now go down to where all the letters start, in the foul rag and bone shop of the heart. The foul rag and bone shop of the heart. So we don't realize that, but art critics have. A normal viewer may not. So an art critic has to live with empathy, with humility, with understanding, even if you don't know the circumstances. You may know the circumstances, you may not know. I don't know what are her circumstances. But the kind of subtlety and the hard work to put it on carbon paper, because we had quite tough time framing it. Because we had a kind of earlier on the glass which was there, which was become difficult because to be sent back. And we are, in any case, 11th hour man, no? I mean, we are 11th hour nation. 11 घंटे कुछ नहीं करते, 12वें घंटे में सब कुछ करना जुगाड़ वाले लोग हैं. So it's have a look, spend some time. There is this very fine work by, what is her name? Sorry. Done on golden leaf.
Recently visited his show in Varanasi.
Acha.
He was showing identity there. He was there. Beautiful works.
So, having said that, I leave you to your own devices and say goodbye for the day. I now move on to my next assignment.
Okay, sir.
That is
Editing the book.
editing the book. And Krishna Sophie's 93rd birthday.
Oh, lovely. So it's like skin for people like skin of Zarina is a very different meaning in our stories of women she's seen all that actually she is close to Zarina, so you see that, and she's someone who's not met my so you can see it on this one, the yellow one.